It's here, it's here, it is finally here. What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. Today we have a very, very, very special treat. One that I have been waiting for, and I have been mentioning, and I have been discussing, and I have been talking about for quite some time. It just showed up in the mail today. I could not be possibly more excited to see this little thing right here than I am. What is this, you ask? This is a cartridge connector for a Jaguar. Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So I started recording this video, and as I got into it, I realized that, posting a 3-hour video is a lot to watch, and a 4-hour video and all that, and, all those things are fine. Sometimes I do those. The more I got to working on this particular console, the more I realized that there was no possible way that I could do this in one video. It would be 10 hours long. And while I know, some of you guys will watch it, a lot of you guys might miss some content on it, so I decided to break it up into 3 parts. So the first part is me taking the console apart and replacing the cartridge connector, which you're going to see now in part 1. Part 2 is going to be replacing the capacitors, cleaning the board up, and making sure everything works. Part 3 is going to be cleaning the shell, testing everything out, and that will wrap that up for this video series. So we're going to go straight into part 1, and probably going to release a video a week until we get this guy wrapped up. Maybe sooner than that, maybe later. You guys stay tuned. Subscribe and hit that bell icon so you get the notifications of when each one of the videos in this series is going to come out, because they're going to come out in rapid succession or fairly rapid succession. It depends on how long it takes me to do each part. So you guys make sure you get subscribed, and we'll see you on the next. So I bought this Jaguar several weeks ago. It's been almost a month and a half, 2 months ago. I got it on eBay. I got a great deal on it, and I could tell in the pictures, as I'm sure you guys can right in here, that there was one glaring problem. Someone had pulled the cartridge connector out of this. Now, why is that such a big deal? First off, Jaguars were not like Nintendos. They were not like Segas. They were not like Dreamcast or Saturns. The connector on these is very hard to find. Parts are very, very hard to find. Not only is this very hard to find, but it is also very difficult to install and uninstall, not because it's hard to find, but because the pins on this are so tiny, and soldering them and desoldering them to get them on the board is extraordinarily difficult and almost cannot be done without damaging the board in some way. Now, I knew that when I bought this console. Even though the seller did not list that the cartridge connector was missing, even though they did not list that this console was damaged, they sold it for parts, said it wasn't working. I could see in the picture, they had left it in the picture visibly enough to where the naked eye could tell. However, someone who didn't know any better may have bought this console and legitimately gotten a console that they thought was going to work. They may have just missed it and gotten it home and realized that it wasn't going to. The problem there is, first and foremost, Jaguars have absolutely skyrocketed in value. I'm not going to give you the history of the Atari Jaguar or of Atari in general. Here's what I am going to tell you. I wanted one of these so bad as a kid. I absolutely, like, of all the consoles available, this was the one. Man, I got to get a Jaguar. I got to get a Jaguar. I want one so bad. It's got the best graphics. Nothing else can touch it. I wanted one of these, and I never did buy one. They were extremely difficult to get. They did not sell in high volume. You couldn't just go to, I mean, listen, where I grew up, maybe you could where you grew up, but where I grew up, you couldn't just go to the store and buy a Jaguar. They just didn't have them, right? The closest place that I could have maybe gotten one would have been like a KB Toys or something like that. But again, they didn't even have them there on the shelves in the mall. Just very difficult. So I knew it was going to be a challenge to get one. I never did end up getting one. I finally bought one, and I bought a damaged one at that. This one was, and I'm trying to read the sticker on it, was from a rental unit from Premier Video. We can see the sticker on it. I'm not sure about this sticker right here. I'm not sure if this is original in some way, in some manner. Obviously, our Premier sticker, is not. I'm not sure about this one. I'm going to have to do some more research. So what's the goal with this console, this particular one? Well, first and foremost, we're going to disassemble it. I already have, by the way. I'm not going to lie to you. I've already taken it apart. I've already been into it. First and foremost, we're going to disassemble it, and we are going to make this thing work. As far as powering it goes, I don't know if it turns on. I don't know anything about it. All that I know is that when I took it out of the box and I looked it over, and it came with 2 controllers, and it came with the RF and the power jack, the wall wart power jack, and all that. This is great. I didn't even turn it on. I don't even have a game yet. Don't worry. I've ordered one. It's coming very soon. I ordered it on eBay today once I knew that this cartridge connector was coming. It showed up. I've searched for one, and there's a guy in California that sells them, and I absolutely want to recommend his website, but I'm not going to name him by name. Here's what I'm going to say, is that I tried to buy 2 of them, and I sent PayPal money over to them. I paid for the shipping, and then they rejected my order because it wasn't at least $50. I get it. There's PayPal fees or whatever else in there. I understand. However, look, man, I was willing to pay for the shipping. I didn't even pay for like regular shipping. I was going to pay for 2-day shipping. Maybe it wasn't enough money in it for you. I don't know. But I ended up not getting it from him, and I found one of these popped up on eBay, the cartridge connector. And so as soon as it popped up, I had the listing or the listing saved. As soon as it popped up, I snapped it up immediately and got it coming. Now, like I told you before, I've already actually been into this board. I've already looked at it. I've already actually done some repairs. And I'm going to flash up a quick montage of some of it, but I'm going to, once I get this open, we're going to get the microscope out. I'll show you what all I repaired. I'll show you the damage that I found, and then we'll kind of high speed into the montage of me fixing it. The reason that I'm not going to show me repairing it on this one is because the camera that I had when I was repairing it was not real good. And as I've stated multiple times on this channel, guys, listen. The first thing that I had to do was get a camera, and the camera I bought, the audio quality was terrible. So I chose not to record any audio with it. And I got a better camera because the video quality also was not very good. And so once I did that, then the camera quality got a little bit better. And guys, I know it's still not great. Bear with me. I'm working through it. But the biggest problem I was having was the audio quality. So I bought another microphone, and we are now where we're at now. I think our audio quality has finally worked most of its issues out. Anyway, glossing over all of that. So I've already done the trace repair on this. And as I'm taking this apart, nothing really to glean or learn from this other than it's dirty and other than I have already pulled this apart. So most of the tabs on this will already be loose and ready for me to pull out. Matter of fact, I don't think that I set any of them back in all the way. I may have. Yeah, it looks like I set at least one of them in. One or two of them in. So one of the things that I've said before on this channel, and I've said to many people, is Atari did not fail because of crappy games. Atari failed because of crappy build quality. I stand by that statement 110%. Listen, you pull apart a Sega, you pull apart a Nintendo, you pull apart whatever you want. The build quality may not be, you know, PlayStation 5 or Xbox One level, but it's still pretty stinking good. You pull apart a classic Atari, the solder masking is terrible, everything is terrible. The build quality is just terrible all the way around the board. This is the nicest Atari board as far as design and layout and quality of materials that of any of the consoles that Atari did. Having said that, I do want to say when you open this up, you can tell that Atari, much like Sega at the time, was having a few problems because we've got some factory baud wires, some factory capacitors going across here, just installed after the fact to make the board work a little bit better, or things like that. As far as what revision this board is, I don't know, and shame on me. I apologize for not knowing and all of that. But I don't know what it is. Couldn't tell you the first thing about it other than I have a Jaguar in my hands. And I am very excited about that. So, now that we've got this guy out of those metals, I have to remember, I believe this just lifts up. It does. I was so excited when I took this apart the first time, and just to look at it, I was so excited. Okay. This is what I mean right here about Atari's build quality. Come on, guys, just a piece of paper. I mean, listen, I get it. I actually am going to buy a VCS as soon as they are released and available. It's just a piece of cardboard, and they did that to keep the board from touching and shorting out. However, you know, if you look at the board, there are designed places that this should be making ground, and it is. It is. I'm just, you know, the quality of this board overall is not real great. It's the best Atari had ever done, but it's not real great. The quality of the components is not terrible. They are using Nichicon capacitors on it, but the layout overall is not real great. Now, here's what I can tell you, okay, about this particular board. So you had two different chips. You had, and Atari called these affectionately as Tom and Jerry, okay? And it enabled this to be 64-bit, the first true 64-bit console, the best graphics in the world, and all of that. But it was incredibly difficult to develop for. It was so notoriously difficult to develop for and to make both of the chips work together. What Atari said is you've got a CPU, that's Tom, and you've got a DSP, a digital sound processor, that's Jerry, but they can kind of work together. However, here's where Atari made their mistake. They included a Motorola 6800 chip on here. Now, what that meant was, and Atari at the time said, all it can be used for is audio quality, is for audio, or all it can be used for is this or that, right? The truth was that with a little bit of clever engineering and a little bit of clever programming, you could just run all of your games on a 6800. This is Motorola 6800, which was a very popular chip at the time. This is a 16 megahertz chip, and that's what most developers did, which is why the games tended to not be great. And when I say tended to not be great, most of the Jaguar games are notoriously bad. We're going to gloss over that too, because I have a Jaguar, and I'm very excited about it. Now, we're going to get a microscope out. I'm going to show you, this is where our cartridge port should live. Okay, this is where it should have lived. Someone, again, pulled the cartridge out of it, and if you don't have the proper tools and you're not real careful, you can damage the board. And I want to show you guys the damage on this board because it is nearly unbelievable just how bad the damage was. And I want you guys to be able to see it up close and personal. So let me tilt him up here. And we'll get him tilted down so you guys can see. So let me tell you what I'm going to do. You can see one of my repair wires already there. So we're going to have to do a little bit more work on him. Let me zoom in real nice and tight. That may be too much. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. So, coming across through here, the first thing that you'll notice is these first ones, not too bad. When we get down to this guy right here, okay, you can see some of the board already being pulled away. Some of the actual, not just the solder mask. Let's zoom way on in here. You can see, let me kill this soft box right here for us. And that should help you guys see a little bit better. Okay, you can see some of the actual board is pulled away. Sorry, up here in this area, right up here. Okay, and you can see it here, and you can see it here. You could tell that there was a trace damaged. This guy right here, where it had ripped across. Now the problem is, this trace carried on in between these two and went to that via, right? And when you look at that via, if you look real closely on the screen, you can see all of the board is literally ripped away right here. Literally just ripped right out of the way. Destroyed. Completely destroyed. So we had that to contend with. Zooming back out. Let me tilt this up so I can make sure I get you guys a good clean image. If you look on this board, again, around all of these vias, right, you can see the damage, and it's top and bottom rows, and it's all the way across, guys. Now, having said that, I did pull a meter out, and I did check. Most of the vias were okay, most of the connections were. This part right up here, okay, this whole section right here is absolutely, I mean, I guess they pried it out, is the best I could figure. Let me tilt this up, bring it right up here. Up top, you can see I put a little bit of a bodge wire in right up here. That complete trace was ripped out off of the board from them prying this off. And right in this whole area right here. Again, that whole top trace was missing. Right in here was. Keeping on moving down the board. Again, you can just see more and more damage as we go. You can see vias. We've got a couple of vias here that are absolutely just this guy right here and his little brother right next to him and this guy over here and these two up here, just annihilated, just destroyed. And you know, I don't, and you can look right here and see, you know, look at all these vias that are just they're just ruined. This is from somebody heating this board up. Somebody heating this board up and prying on it with a screwdriver. This is, and you guys have heard me mention him on my channel before. You know, the Jerk, Jake the Jerk. You know that he can fix that console. He can do anything. You know, just look at all the damage on there. Sorry, I'm trying to do this in screen where you guys can see it. And then we jump over to the second side. And again, we're right back in damage. You can see I stopped. There's still a trace right here in between I've got to fix, but there were a couple of vias that were giving me some problems. So you got to fix that guy. Moving right on down the board, I mean, most of these are just in horrible shape. And if that wasn't bad enough, you go to the bottom of the board, and the problems are very, very, very much the same here. Very much, if not worse, in some places. If not worse in some places. Try to zoom out a little bit more. There we go. Now, is the build quality, is the fact that these traces were ripped and torn and damaged and destroyed, is that Atari's fault? No, that's not poor build quality. You see these two traces right here, these two guys right here, you see they're joined. We're going to have to desolder that and fix those two traces. Proceeding on down, you can see the vias. Most of them are ripped out, missing. That is not Atari's fault. Okay, Atari didn't do this, or at least I hope they didn't. This is somebody who, you know, thought they could just fix this, and they attempted with abandon. I don't even know how else to explain it. But what they did was they destroyed, they ruined this board and made it. I don't know how much of this is going to be fixable, but I tell you what, here's what I do know. I got a hot soldering iron, a lot of patience, and so however long this takes us to fix is what it's going to take. And I'm pretty good at this stuff. I'm certainly no Voltar, but I'm not bad. I ain't half bad. So we are absolutely going to fix this cartridge connector. We are going to get it in here all the way it's supposed to be. And we're going to make this work properly. And you know, listen, if that takes 6 hours, then it takes 6. If it takes 10, then it takes 10. It's going to take whatever it takes to get this fixed properly. We're going to do it. We're going to do the job right, and we're going to get this Jaguar back up and running. And the reason I'm so adamant about it is that we are going to. I'm sorry. I have flipped this up now. I hope you guys can still see some. I am now looking at each one of these as I go through here. I'm checking board. I'm probably going to start zooming in. And instead of going, all right, let's start all the way back over here on this guy. So what I'm going to do first, the reason we're going to do this is because this console deserves it. This is an Atari Jaguar. This is a piece of gaming history. And we're going to restore it because we can. And because we should. And because we have the skills. We can rebuild it. And thus we are going to. I'm a little concerned about this particular via because it's smashed and pried pretty bad. However, the connection point's on the other side of the board, so we're going to have to check him out. I'm going to try to stick just to this top row, and all I'm doing is looking at, here's what I'm doing, guys. Okay, so starting on this one, I'm looking at the via. I'm looking at the end of the trace right here. I'm not looking further down. I'm just looking right here at the end of this trace and the via itself. Now, here's what I'm not concerned about. Is it a little bit dirty? Not concerned about that. Okay? Not concerned about it even a little bit. Is it a little messy? I'm not concerned about that. Will it take a pin? That I am concerned with. If it will not take a pin, you know, and just for size comparison, these are the size of our pins under the microscope. So if that pin fits, let me get a hold to one. If that pin fits, I'm going to have to do this upside down so you guys can see what I'm doing here. Then this pin should also fit, because they are roughly the same size. Okay? So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking this little pin in my fingers here, and any of these vias, like this very first one right here, I'm going to be checking to make sure. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to clip him down to size just a bit, make him a little bit easier to deal with. Let me get my broad-shouldered tweezers, my wide tweezers, and we're going to go down through here and we're going to check each one of these vias. If this little bitty pin that I've got will go through that hole, then we're golden. If it won't, then we've got a little work to do. So this first one, it would appear as though we have a little work to do, but looking at it upon close inspection, it would appear that the problem that we're going to have is on the bottom of the board. So let's flip him over. And see a little bit of a balancing act here. Yeah. So what we've got, and let me pull up just a little bit so you can see it, and so I can work on it. On this particular one, is we've got a via that's smashed in on the back side. Okay? And we're going to have to find a way to open that up without damaging it, because damaging it is the last thing that we want to do. It is already damaged enough. It's suffered enough. You don't have to make it suffer anymore. So we're going to start with a little pair of tweezers. And I'm just trying to make this via gently now. I'm not putting pressure. You notice there's some rotation going on here. Any gunk that's inside of there, I definitely want to get that out. But we want to be careful. And we're going to be careful. I'm so stinking excited. I just can't get over it. You know, I've worked on a lot of consoles. And, you know, here I am working on my first Jaguar. I'm very excited about it. I don't know if you guys can tell or not, but I'm very excited about it. I never thought this day would come. Not quite. This is, again, one of those processes. This is a time-consuming process. Expect it to take time. Count on it taking time. Do not be in a rush. Do not be in a hurry. Do not force this. Do not break this. Do not jam anything into this. Just take your time. Decide on a plan of attack. Again, we have to fix nearly every single one of them, and that's okay. I think we've got progress, and we do. So I can actually, and this is, if I line this guy up perfectly, I can take him in and out now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wobble, use my pen, and I'm just going to wobble them around in there. Okay, so now we know we're good with that one. What I do have is a little bit of trash, a little bit of debris right here. And that is some old flux, and if we're not careful, we'll lose him. Okay, so back to reality. This guy right here, we're looking pretty good. We're going to zoom back in, and we're going to keep moving right on down the line. That guy looks so much better. Okay, so he's good. And moving on to our second one, that looks good. Our third one looks okay. I do want to check right in between here. No, nothing bad there. That looks okay. Any of these that look okay, I'm just going to gloss right by. I could if I really wanted to. And I guess, you know what? We're here and we're doing it. And what do I always say on my channel? If you're here and you're doing it, you might as well go ahead and do it all the way, right? So let me get a hold of my little sticky pin. This is just a component leg, I believe, off a resistor LED or something like that. So he fits. That fits. That fits. No problems. That one's good. That one's good. That one's good. 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 Okay. Coming back over here. Now, the first one is good. Second one is a little snug. Little snug. Yeah, we don't really like that yet. It's okay. I'm going to use that. What you can see on the screen is that the whole side of this via right here has been ripped out. Now, that should be okay, and I say it should be okay because it's still making contact with the trace. It's still, the connection's still there. The trace is still there. Everything looks good, so that should, in theory, be okay. It's one of those we're gonna. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna test all these after we check them all. Okay. And this is another one that if you look around this outside edge, you can see how damaged it is. You can see the trace coming in between. It's bent and damaged. And we can see this via, but he, again, is still connected. So if our pin goes down in there, and it does, we're probably good. This one you can see, again, is bent, but he's good. 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 Uh-oh. Not good, and I lost it. guy right here, we're going to have to bend just a little bit up and make a little bit of room in. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking the end of my tweezers and I'm pushing them down inside the hole, using the flat side to oval out my pins. Or round them out, I guess, as it were, internally. Okay. Here's another one that we can see. We can look at and definitely tell this trace around here and this fiberglass underneath it's definitely exposed. And you can see the trace is pretty much ruined all the way up here, but the bottom's okay. So if we are careful, when we solder this guy in, if we are careful, we can make it work. This one right here. Oh, I said that. Oh, she went through. Yep, she's good. That one's good. Okay. That one's not so good. Let's take a look and see if we can find out why not. So I've got one pair of my tweezers has broken. And when I say broken, the leg on it is broken, and it is longer than the other side, and that's what I use to do some of the digging around inside that I do. I think I can probably make that particular via right there work, even though the pin won't go in all the way. I would be willing to bet you I can probably get this one to work. A little bit of finagling, so we're going to keep moving on. This one, you can see the via was torn on it. What we're going to do is try our best to just not destroy it anymore. Just kind of wiggle ourselves an opening to get through there. It's our goal. Yeah, we can make that work. All of those look okay all the way down to this one. Yep, he's good. That's all of those. That one's okay. That's okay. This one I'm a little bit worried about. Nope, he's good. A little bit worried about. You can clearly see the ones that are fine, and there's just no need to mess with. And the ones that are seriously damaged and you need to do a little work to, such as that guy right there. But, however, when in doubt, don't risk it. Just take your time. When in doubt, don't risk it. This game console is too valuable, worth too much money. Certainly was not cheap to buy, but overall the console itself, like I said, you know, Jaguars are going way up in value. And if we can restore this one, you know, we get to restore a little piece of history, and that's cool. Okay, so this via and the one beside it are definitely I've definitely seen much better days. What we're going to do... I believe that right there will get it. If it won't, it's going to be awfully close. I'll get it. The next one is obviously not going to fit. You can tell it's smashed in all the way around. Jeez. Now, I'm not using any heat. And I'm not using any heat for a very, very, very good reason. Right now, this metal... uh-oh. Okay, we didn't hurt anything. Right now, this metal is malleable, but also resilient. And the last thing that we want to do is soften this up any. We want to keep this as firm as we can keep him for as long as we can keep him firm. We want to make sure that he stays good and tough as long as humanly possible. There we go. Now we've got to some damage, some legitimate damage. So, you can see this via right here is in half of the board, but the trace isn't actually connected, so we're going to have to connect this trace. However, you got all the room in the world. You can see this trace right here is bent out of shape. Let's go ahead and see if we can put just a little bit of pressure, bend him back over. That looks pretty good. I don't know what tool they took this out with, but I would like to take the tool that whichever asshole did this to this board with and beat him upside the head with it. That's what I'd really like to do. Easy. That's what I'd like to do. I'd like to take whatever tool John Jerk used to abuse this board, and I'd like to just 20 minutes. Who am I kidding? I'll never last 20 minutes. 5 minutes alone with a guy in a back alley with whatever tool this was that he used on this board. That's what I'd like. There's another one, the broken trace. Damage in the middle. It looks like we got a break right here. I'm not 100% sure. We're going to come back and test him. Those vias all look good. Those look good. There is another damaged one here, but I don't see a trace going to it. Coming out of it. So those two right there are both good. We'll do a continuity check on him in a minute. This one does not look so good, and we've definitely got a broken... We had a broken trace. This right here is one that I was able to just slide back over in place and solder, and if I get it in the right light, you can see the solder on it right there, holding that together. Once we've got this guy all done and we're sure he's going to hold, we'll put some solder mask or some lacquer down. Oh no, did I break that? Nope, sure didn't. Got lucky. All of these look pretty good. Look pretty good. Cool. All right, tell you what, let me step back and take a break real quick, and then we're going to get into repairing some of these traces and other things on here, okay? All right, guys, welcome back. I had to take a little bit of break for a second. I had a work call I had to deal with. So the first thing we're going to do, now that we're back, is we're going to slide down through here, and we're going to look at all of these ones, of all of these, like this one here with a broken edge, and we're going to look at the trace. And that one looks good. It's connected to the trace, so we're happy with that. These ones that are not connected to a trace, I'm not concerned with at all right now. This one is still connected to a trace, this guy right here. But I'm not, tell you what else I'm going to do. I'm going to pull out my trusty meter. We're going to set him to continuity mode, and we're going to tone away some of this stuff, and just as a quadruple check on this, we're going to just make sure we're here, and we are here. Okay, that's got a good tone. Let me come all the way up to this front top edge right up here, so I know I'm out of the way of it. Okay, that one's good. I'm happy with that. Well, I'm not happy with it, but I guess we've got no choice but to live with it. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to live with it. I don't know what that is. A bristle or something, maybe. Keep it on coming down. I want to check. I want to screw in my test lead first. I want to check from here to there. Yep. This guy. Okay, that's good. I was a little concerned there might have been a break right there, but that's okay. There's no break. And we're going to keep on checking down. It looks like I've got a little bit of a smash going on right here, but he looks okay. So we're going to roll with it. We're going to give this a good clean here in a few minutes. Okay. This one is coming down all the way. Goodness gracious. It was all the way across the board. Okay, well, tell you what, let's go about it this way. This guy right here, this is the one we're looking at. Let me find him again. There's a tiny, tiny, tiny little piece. See, we got no tone there, we got no tone here. Yeah, okay, so that one's got one. There's a tiny little piece exposed. That was enough. Okay, so this was the one with the broken trace in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our meter up here, down here to the bottom of our brake. That seems okay. That one's okay. This one's got a little smash right here in the middle of it, but he's okay. And that one's fine. Checking the bottom row. So this one right here, again, is missing half of our trace around it. And he comes down to this test point. And he's good. This one's missing quite a bit, but there's no trace. The trace is on the other side. And most of these ones on the bottom are. Okay, so we've got to one here that we've definitely got no continuity. You can tell he's broken. So that's going to be the first guy that we attack. And it is actually on this broken leg right here. You can see he comes across and he drops down to this via right here. So, how are we going to deal with that? I can't solder anything to this from here. I might can get a tiny piece of wire in there maybe. Let me see. Let's turn on our iron. Let's give it a shot with a real small, let me find some super small wire. Because the normal stuff I use might be too large for this. But what I do have is some even smaller. And this is not 0.02 millimeter wire, and I say not because I hear the British guys say that all the time, and I rather like it. I think it's amusing, so I want to be cool too. So, tell you what, it breaks really easy. This is the size of our wire. That is going to be not big enough to transmit what we need. And the only other thing that I have is a little bit larger. That'll do it if I can make that wrap, but I don't know that I can. What I do know is we're going to give her a shot. So we're going to come in with our pocket knife, and again, I don't recommend a pocket knife. I like my pocket knife. You should not use a pocket knife. Fiberglass in this board is a pain to deal with. Okay. Let me see if I can prop something underneath this board to keep it from tilting down so much. Let me see if I can, if I am good enough, which I doubt. I doubt I'm good enough to pull this off, but we're going to try it anyway, right? So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to come across this edge and tie to there without touching that in any way whatsoever. And we're going to have to do it without bridging that via in any way. So the first thing that we're going to do, this enamel coated wire is really great, there are a couple of things that you should know when you're dealing with enamel-coated wire, and that is you're going to have to burn away the enamel. Now, I always highly recommend using enamel-coated wire. Nothing else, there's nothing else like it. And you don't have to worry so much about a little bit more bend on the end of this guy, about something accidentally touching if you're doing a long run. You don't have to worry about that so much. However, you still must be incredibly careful Now, I could go ahead and clip this off right now, but I'm not ready to do that just yet. I'm just not ready to do that yet because I'm not happy with the placement all the way. I'm not happy that I can get a pin through it all the way. You see what I've done here. Let me go ahead and turn on my desoldering gun. Maybe. Okay.
Hey.
And I'm just going to pull him around to where he follows the same line, and then I'm going to very gently take my pocket knife again, rotate just a little bit where I can get over here to it, and I'm just going to gently apply pressure down now. We're going to go back now that we've got that repaired, and we're going to check with our little pin to see if our little pin will go through our little hole. And it will. It doesn't love it, but it will. So we're going to leave that one alone. We're pretty happy. We're going to go ahead and get our test leads out, though, in continuity mode. And we're going to check the end of this guy. So that one is good to go now. She's repaired. We've got to desolder this. Let's see if that has resolved that guy. Well, she may not be perfect, but just like me, nothing is. I believe I can probably make that work. Said I could. Maybe I can't. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pull a slick little trick out. Okay, you guys pay attention to this little trick. Uh-oh. So if you ever get that via that you can't vacate properly, and what you do, apply a little bit of heat to it. Okay. Just doesn't seem to want to come out at all, does it? So, we've tried a couple of different things. We're going to keep trying until we get him all the way vacated. When you hear people say, by the way, that these pins or these vias on the Jaguar were really difficult to work with, let me give you a size representation. This is my favorite one. I love doing this size representation. This is just a standard Pilot G2 ink pen. Nothing special about him in any way. It's a Pilot G207. Okay, everybody knows what that looks like. Slide him under the microscope here, and I'm going to tilt him down. The very tip of this is larger than the hole that we're going in. So if you want to know how big you're working with, or how small in this particular case, this is a perfect explanation. What we are dealing with is trying to solder and desolder something smaller than the point of a pin that is closer than half the width of that pin to the board, to the next thing beside it. Got it. Got it. Just had to go under the board to do it. Got it. Nailed it. What I do want to do is check, because it looks like and it might just be my light. No, I can see it. And the wrong light, and just the wrong light, it looks like that these two are connected, but they're definitely not. Okay, great. Meddling right along. What about this one? Oh, that's just some gunk. Okay, no problem there. Meddling right along. Is this a break? It looks kind of like a break, huh? It does, but it's not a full... There's not really a break there. It just kind of looks like it. Let's check this guy right here. He looks like he might have a small break. And here's our next one. We're going to have to apply a very similar treatment to. Okay, let me get everything ready, and we'll be right back to get him all tuned up. Alright guys, getting back at it real quick. So we've got to fix this via here, and we're going to attempt to do it exactly the same way as we did the last one. We're going to expose a little bit of trace. This one will be a little bit better off because we don't have to go as far. We're going to just scratch away at the solder mask. Until we expose enough of the copper. Until we expose enough of the copper underneath it that we can get in and do what we need to do.
Yep. Yep.
Make sure he's opened up just like that. We're going to put a little bit of flux down. And we're going to try. Let's see what we're going to try. It would help if I would turn my soldering iron back on. So while we're waiting on that to warm up, let's slide over. Excuse me. Double check anything else. This guy here, I'm a little bit worried about, but it may be okay. I don't know. There's no trace that I see going to him anywhere, up or down, so that may just be a through hole. That one's good. Same here. I don't see anything on this guy right here going up or down, so that one may be all right. We'll check the bottom of the board once we're done with this. Okay. So all those look to be okay. Let's get back over here to the one in question. Apply just a little bit more flux, just so we're on the safe side. And we're going to get our wire back out again. This is just standard insulated wrapping wire, music wire, whichever. And what I'm doing right now is I'm warming this wire up, trying deliberately to melt off as much of the insulation as is possible. The idea is to melt off the insulation and tin the wire all at the same time so that you can attach it to the point that you want. Lost it. Okay, so what we're going to do turn our we're not going to finish, we're not going to walk away from this guy yet. We're going to test here. Now that we're sure we've got a tone, we're going to do this on this particular one before we go cutting our wire deliberately, because I can't tell in the viewfinder here. It's hard for me to see if we've actually got a good trace. It's hard for me to see anything about it right now. What I can tell you is that we have a hole full of solder, and that is going to be a problem for us. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and remove this wire, and if we have to put him back on later, we will. If for some reason it doesn't work out the way we want, because we're probably going to end up having to get to the bottom side of this board and use a solder sucker. maybe. So, the one that we're looking for, I don't know what that is. Let's try to clean that away. So what we're going to do with this particular guy, we're going to go ahead and see if we can't load him up with solder and then try to remove that. Is what we're going to what we're going to attempt. I don't know if it's going to work. We're going to find out. Let's get our desoldering pump. We're going to try to hand pump this one out just because of the difficulty of where he's at. Is what we're going to try to do. So one thing I will tell you is location and how you actually go about getting to something can really alter the tool that you decide to use. I'm going to have to do this out of shot. You guys are not going to be able to see this. One. And it looks like I filled up the other hole too while I was doing it. There we go. Let me find him. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Oh, we're down here. Okay, so we definitely pulled both of those out. Got all of the solder out from in there. Check this side of the board and make sure we are still quite good to go. Nope. Looks like he has slipped a little bit, but that's okay. That's perfectly all right. There's the desoldering gun going off. He's now ready to work. You're late. You should have never even come here. We've already moved on. So if I can pull off soldering to the edge of this, we'll be golden. If I can't, we'll be right back where we started. Whoops. A little bit of quick heat like that right there, and that should, in theory, have us repaired. Now, let's see. So you guys are not going to be able to see completely. I'm checking, there's a bunch of test points over here. So, we have definitely got tone there, which means we have repaired that guy. And what we're going to do, just being in the interest of being thorough, is we're going to check him. To our other pads in the area. And that looks like it's all good to go. All right. Moving along, I think that's going to wrap up the top of this board. We've checked all the rest of these. That was actually our pad right there. That was the one we were working on. So we may have tested the wrong one. Let's test him. No, we were on the right one. Okay. So we're going to flip this board over and we are going to repeat process on the other side. Okay guys, we got the board flipped over now. We're going to start going through this side of it and checking everything out, making sure everything's good to go. I will say this is going to be a little bit shakier on screen than the other side, and that is just simply due to it's a little bit unstable. I've got it resting on a Game Gear cartridge right now. We're going to check each little section of this and just make sure, same as last time, we're not going to do the pins. We're just going to quickly sweep through and check all of the pins out, make sure none of the traces are broken. Okay. Just checking that hole. It looked a little small. Now again, what I'm doing here is I'm looking at the traces, the vias, and the trace connected to it, and anything else that might look out of place in the area. We're not necessarily going on to fix anything at this particular moment. We're just double checking every via and every trace to make sure that we're good. What we don't want to do at this stage of the game is miss any of these, because once we get the cartridge connector reinstalled, okay, that's it. We're done. There is very little chance of us ever getting it back out if something's not right without damaging the board. Even further, as damaged as this is. So we're going to take our time. We're going to check everything, and then once we're done with that, again, and this is all because this board was damaged so much. Once we're done with that, we're going to start checking continuity across and between pins to find all of the traces and make sure there's a broken one. So you can see this trace came down and connected to this right here. Let's see if I can sharpen that up a little bit for you. There we go. Came down and connected to right here is where it originally connected to. This guy right here. And he is completely ripped off all the way up to the via. So first thing, I guess, let's find a way to prop our board up. And we can fix this one. We're just going to scrape away the solder mask on it. And we're going to apply a little bit of solder just to tin the trace just a little bit. We're going to get a little piece of our wrapping wire. We're going to bring him right down here. And we're going to attempt being the operative word here, to get him soldered in place. You guys will have to excuse my dogs in the background. It's playtime for the doggies. Okay. Got him tacked down in place. Now we're going to take this guy and we're going to follow the original routing. Playtime for the doggos. What we're trying to do here is just get this guy right here on the edge of this. We're going to hold him in place. A little bit of flux down. And we're going to do our very best to tack him into place. Try to tin up just the edge of this. Okay, that's not absolutely 100% perfect, and I'm going to tell you why I'm not worried about it right now. It's attached. It's attached okay. It's not a perfect solder joint. The reason I'm not super concerned about it is because once our cartridge connector goes through that hole, we'll be able to apply more solder to it. So for now, we're just going to snip him off. Just like that. Now again, is that the most perfect solid connection in the world? No. The part that we are mostly concerned about is right down here. She's good and solid. This top piece, once our cartridge connector comes through, we'll be able to put a nice solder joint right there and make sure he's held down. And we're going to move right along. What we got going on here? Other than some dirt and debris, those bottoms look good. Double check the top one last time. And then we're going to clean him up. we're going to do some continuity tests. We're basically going to trace out all of these points on the board and make sure that we have continuity. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. Tracing this out is going to be a time-consuming process, so I'm probably going to fast forward through most of it. Most of it I'm not going to be able to do under the microscope because the trace starts here. This one will be easy. The trace, for instance, on this one starts here, comes up and over to here. However, this next one over, the trace starts here, comes to this test pad. Great. This trace up here, though, let's find one. This one to that test pad. There. Okay. So we come down here, and some of these, like I said, are very far away, and there's no way I can zoom out and get all of this on the screen at the same time. So let me straighten up a few things real quick, and we'll flip this board back over and start tracing the top side of it. And as we do, we'll go into high speed, and if I find any more broken traces or anything, we'll be sure to slow down so you guys can see what Okay, guys. So that was not a horrible process in the grand scheme of things. It's certainly not the worst one that I've ever done. We're going to go ahead and test fit. And when I say test fit, we're going to gently attempt to insert our cartridge connector. Now, before I do this, I am going to examine these pins under a microscope. I'm going to look down them. I'm going to make sure they're straight. And when I say under a microscope, sorry, under my magnifying glass, I'm just going to look at them. I'm going to make sure they're straight. I'm going to make sure they're clean. Then I'm going to clean up the board, double check it under my magnifying glass, which is going to be a little tough for you guys to see what's going on. I just want to make sure I'm clean and I'm ready to go, and that all of these pins are straight. And then once we go to insert this, we are going to very gently, this is going to take some time. Most of your cartridge connectors, and I don't have one handy, but most of them, the pins are 2 sizes larger than this, and they're further apart, even on an N64. Everything is larger than this. These are incredibly tight for a cartridge. Once we get that done, what we're going to do is go ahead and recap this whole board, just to make sure all the capacitors are replaced and everything's good to go. And then, once we've got that done, my board's got a slight warp to it. I wonder why. Sorry. And then once we do all that, we're just going to double check some other things. And then we're going to throw power to it and see if we get an LED light. If we get an LED light, this is a big if at this point. If we get an LED light, we might try to connect this up to something and see if we can get the red screen of death. Now, don't get scared about that saying when it comes to a Jaguar. When you connect a NES up and there's no cartridge in it, you get a black screen or you get a white screen or whatever. When you connect a cartridge up to a Genesis, or when you connect a Genesis with no cartridge in it, you get a black screen, just does nothing. When you connect a Jaguar up with no cartridge in it, you get a red screen. Now, there are things we can do, and we're going to do, with this to kind of trick it a little bit. And when I say trick it, we're going to trick it into thinking a cartridge is in it by jumpering a couple of pins, but we're going to do it on the cartridge slot. And then, once we do that, we're going to step back, and once we're sure everything here seems good, appears good, we're going to give the board one final little sweep down clean, make sure everything's good. We're going to clean up the plastics, polish them up a little bit. I got some neat new toys in to polish some plastics up with. And I say polish, just remove some of the scuffs after it's cleaned and make it look nice and pretty. I'm going to do a quick Google search and see about that bottom sticker on it. Once we've got all that done and she's in place, the last thing we're going to do, once we've soldered everything in, replaced all the capacitors, cleaned everything up, cleaned the plastics up, is we're going to pull a controller apart. Just one of them, because I've already done the other one. And take a quick look inside. There's not a lot of cleanup to do inside of it, but I found it very interesting. Basically, what Atari did was use a breadboard. Just the cheapest way of doing it ever. What I am going to be careful of is any of these handwritten notes on this board. I'm going to be extra careful not to damage or erase them in any way. Normally I wouldn't care so much. If you guys notice, I'm actually paying real close attention. I'm not going crazy scrubbing, even over where our cartridge slot is, and I'm not going to. Any remaining flux on the board, again, flux will not hurt a single thing on the board. I mean, it's not ideal. It's not really necessarily what you want, but it won't hurt anything to leave it in place. We're going to give it a good quick clean with this toothbrush. And the same thing on the bottom. We're going to just be gentle, just because, again, these Jaguar consoles are so valuable and they're so rare. So why are they rare? Well, they didn't, you know, we talked about earlier, they didn't make a whole lot of them. They didn't sell a whole lot of them. And that makes it inherently more difficult to get a hold of them. We're not talking about, you know, where they sold 20 million Nintendos. We're talking about they sold a couple 100,000 of these worldwide. Nowhere near the numbers that they anticipated or expected or even wanted to sell. And like I said, that makes this console inherently more valuable just on the surface than anything else. And I say anything else, there are more valuable consoles, but from this generation, shy of a limited edition console here or there, these are the most rare, the most valuable ones out there. This is the one every serious collector wants, and it's very hard. Most people can't get a hold of them. You know, and when I say that, you can go on eBay or you can go wherever. You can buy these all day long. If you feel like coughing up that $700, $800, $1,000 for one of these, you can buy one of these all day long. If you feel like coughing up $300, $400, $500 for one of these, damaged and not working, with no clear path to repair it, again, you can't get the parts for. I mean, you can get the capacitors. You know, those are easy to get a hold of. What you can't get any of the chips. The cartridge connector literally took me a month and a half, 2 months to find. You know, because they just don't make them, and they're very rare that they come up for sale. Now they're not incredibly expensive, but whereas you can go on Amazon and pick up as many NES cartridge connectors as you want. Genesis connectors, a dime a dozen. And when I say a dime a dozen, you can buy a whole pack of Genesis connectors. You can buy a Genesis connector for $2-3 bucks. $2-3 bucks. You know, you'll pay more for the shipping than you will for the cartridge connector. You know, they're cheap. N64 connectors, things like that. Again, cheap. Easy to get a hold of. All day long, no problem. However, try to get a Jaguar connector, something that no one makes anymore. They're not in print. They're not in service. Nobody makes them. Well, that was no good. We broke him off. We're going to have to see about soldering that guy back down, huh? I just tried to bend up this little tab so we get a little bit better ground on the board, and instead of just bending up, it just decided to snap off, which goes back to my conversation about Atari's legendary build quality, legendarily bad. Again, you know, you deal with enough of these consoles, you replace or repair enough of them, you're going to start to form opinions. I love Ataris. It's the first console my family ever had. I love them. They hold a special place in my heart. However, their build quality is abysmal at best. At best, abysmal. There we go. Just some of the, and you know, all joking aside, and being as seriously as I can, this Jaguar, this is a much nicer board than Atari I've ever seen. And I'm not talking about this particular board. I'm talking about the solder mask. But even with the solder mask and everything else on it, even with the traces nice and clean, even with all of that stuff, I can still look at this and tell you, I can tell you by the way the board fractures underneath it that the fiberglass was very cheap. That they just did not spend a lot of money, and because of that, you know, listen, if you're not gonna put the money or the effort into building a system, people are gonna know it. They're gonna know it. All I'm doing is checking, just checking. I'm just looking at all of my traces and making sure that none of my wires came loose. And that everything is good to go. All of my little repaired wires that I put on here are good to go. The last thing that we want to do with this, and the very worst thing that we could do with this, would be to go ahead and drop the cartridge connector on and not have repaired something on the top of the board. The bottom of the board's not as big of a deal. We can get to it. But if something isn't repaired on the top of the board, if we've missed a broken trace somewhere, if something isn't perfect, getting this thing desoldered is going to be nearly impossible. And when I say nearly impossible, obviously you can do it. And if you look at the quality of the job this guy did, whoever did this before me, it's possible. But you're probably going to damage the board pretty bad. Okay. All right. Let's see if we can get this guy to line up and drop in. Now, what we're not going to do with this, we are not going to force this. Okay. Well, he dropped right in surprisingly well. Great. I'm just going to take a quick look at all of my pins underneath the microscope, or my magnifying glass, and I'm just looking to make sure they're all showing, that they all came through properly in the right hole, that two of them didn't bend, or I'm not missing one of them or anything like that. I'm just making sure that every single one of these is correct. Now, I've checked it. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to tack this in place. Now, you'll hear me talk about that from time to time. What we're going to do is we're going to solder one pin on this corner. And again, we're going to do this one pin at a time for our tack. Just like that. And we're going to come over here to this far corner. And we're going to tack one more in place. All this is going to do is hold our board in position. And we're going to heat up again. And we're going to heat up and apply straight direct pressure down. Straight direct pressure down on our board. So that if there's any gap or anything, we can go ahead and squeeze that out. Let our solder tack up and dry. And we're going to come to this side, and we're going to do the same. Okay. Now, we are going to go back under the microscope to solder this in place. A lot of times on my channel, you'll see me be a big fan of the drag solder technique. My concern with this is, and we may end up doing that, we may try a small section first. My concern with drag soldering this is that it is so small, and so close together that we might end up making bridges unnecessarily. So the first thing that we're going to do is the pin that we had to run the magic wire to, this guy right here. Okay. Let me look up and make sure you guys can see what I'm seeing. This guy. We're going to go ahead and solder him in place first before we do anything else. This is going to be not the most critical one, but if we don't get this one right, then none of the rest of them are really going to matter. And I say that because we've got a little bit of playroom on some of the rest of them, but on this one we have literally no playroom at all. This wire must be soldered in place, and in that way, if it comes loose during soldering here, we can reattach it there. But if we can't get this side in, that side will never hold, because this side is barely held on. And I say barely, it's a very small trace and it's got very little room on it, and so it's not going to take a lot of heat to undo that solder joint there. By doing this one first, once that solder holds, once that joint holds, we're good to go. But if we can't get this one, then we're probably not going to get any of the rest of them. So we're going to come in here. And our wire lifted. And our wire lifted. That's okay. That's okay. And this right here is exactly what I was talking about, by the way, if you didn't notice that. As I was trying to solder this, the entire wire pulled right off. We put too much heat into it, too much, and it pulled right off the board, which means now we have to go and reattach it. Now, when we go to reattach this guy, we're going to get him laid roughly in position as best we can. And then we're going to solder him to our via first. Dropped my little wire. The problem is that I'm having is I have to be able to hold my soldering iron okay, in my right hand. I have to. I can't do this left-handed. I just don't have the room. And I also have to manipulate the tweezers with my left hand. We'll try this left-handed and see what happens with it. We're going to try it left-handed and just see what happens. This guy right here is really getting annoying. So, here's what I'm going to say. It's not perfect, but I'm going to learn to live with that. We're going to push him down, a few little tweaks to it. It's not perfect, but we are going to have to learn to love it. Because I'm going to be honest, that's probably about as good as that one is ever going to get. You have to be careful and not run out of patience with these guys. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to start up top. And we're going to do 4 of these guys at a time, 4 or 5 of them at a time. Normally, would see me drag soldering this whole thing here. Normally you would. But again, with as tight as these pins are, I don't want to risk damaging them. So I tell you what, while I solder the rest of these up, we're going to kick this into high speed, let you guys watch this, watch me go down through here soldering all of this, and hopefully we'll be done before. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you do that. Use a little bit of flux cleaner on here. Normally, guys, and you've seen in some of my other videos, I would not take that amount of time to solder each individual one. But again, I want to stress the reason that I did is because of the inherent value in a rare console such as this. I did not want to risk any damage to this board. Is it required to be that thorough and detailed? Absolutely not. I more than likely could have gotten by with drag soldering that. However, well, I will say this. There were some of those that were legitimately going to be a pain no matter what I did. Glossing over that and moving on from there. It's in, it's complete. We still have to change out the capacitors, do a little bit more dress up on the board. We need to clean our plastics, and I need to do some research on the back of that sticker. So I'm going to go take a break and do a little bit of research while I'm there, and I will catch you guys back in just a few minutes, and we will go to replacing capacitors. And I'm probably going to go ahead and throw the plastics in and get them started in cleaning so that we can polish those up later. Yeah, I got one of those. So I was looking at it was a 2200 UF capacitor on the main board. That's interesting. Never mind all that. We're definitely going to replace him. He's got a slight bulge to him, and so does this guy here. The rest of them look okay, but we're going to replace them anyway. We're going to check out this switch, and we're probably going to replace, this is a 5mm LED. We're probably going to replace that with a 5mm red LED. Not for any other reason other than it'll be just a little bit brighter and last a little bit longer and all those things. At any rate, let me take a break and I'll catch you guys here in just a few minutes, and we'll get everything, we'll get back to work on this guy. Alright guys, so that's going to wrap up part one. In this particular part, we did get the console connector reinstalled on here and working. I say working. We've got it back installed completely, which is what our goal for this particular part was. In the second part, we're going to be replacing all the capacitors inside the board and making sure all of those guys are functional and ready to rock and roll. I appreciate you guys watching this video. Thanks so much. You guys make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the video if you liked it, hit the thumbs down if you didn't. Make sure if you do subscribe, you hit that bell icon so you get the notification for when the capacitor repair video comes out, which should be in a couple of days, maybe a week. And then after that, we will do the final cleanup and repair of the console shell. Glossing over all this, making it look all beautiful and pretty and brand new again. Before we wrap this whole entire series up, I thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.